But just going to go, and the way to that stop going.
Growth Radio. One king, one kingdom. Sowing seeds to grow nations.
Growth Radio, Growth Radio, Growth Radio, Growth Radio.
I'm Keith, host of the program Interact for Impact. Bible-based teaching, study, and discussion aimed at equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. Join me every second and fourth Sunday, 1 p.m. on Growth Radio.
Hello, good afternoon to those of you who are in Trinidad and those of you within this time zone, good afternoon. But there are other areas that might be morning, midday, while you're away midday, afternoon or night. So welcome to the program Interact for Impact. I'm your host Keith, and you're listening to me live on Growth Radio, streaming platforms of TuneIn Radio, Radio Garden. Listen to my radio, radio.net, my radio hut, Facebook, YouTube, and of course the official webpage of Growth Radio. That's www.growthradiott.com. So I want to wish a warm welcome to all those who are listening, new listeners, people who are logging in not just to the program, but to the station for the first time. Glad to have you on board. This is again the program Interact for Impact. It's been off for a while, but it's now back, and we want to open this session because of the events that are taking place in the country. Well, it's yearly events, but this one is referred to as the mother of all carnivals in Trinidad and Tobago, because it's been a time of recovering from the COVID period and all this pent up energy that is within the individuals. But in a lot of instances, people don't know the history, not just the local carnival, but carnival itself. So today I want to spend some time on sharing the history of carnival, the international history, and then next session, which will be on the second Sunday in February, to spend some time on the history of local carnival. But before we go there, I just want to share two passages of the Bible with you. And the first one is taken from John, the Gospel of John, chapter 17, and it's from verse 8. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. And it says, "For I have passed on to them the message you give me. They accepted me and know that I came from you, and they believe you sent me. My prayer is not for the world, but for those you have given me, because they belong to you. All who are mine belong to you, and you have given them to me, so they bring me glory. Now I am departing from the world. They are staying in this world, but I'm coming to you. Holy Father, you have given me your name. Now protect them by the power of your name, so that they will be united, just as we are. During my time here, I protected them by the power of the name you give me. I guarded them so that not one was lost, except the one headed for destruction, as the scriptures foretold. For I am now coming to you. I told them many things while I was with them in this world, so they will be filled with my joy. I have given them your word, and the world hates them, because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. Just as you sent me into the world, I am sending them into the world." That's from John chapter 17, verses 8 to 18. The other one is 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 to 17. And that says, Do not love this world nor the things it offers you. For when you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from this world. And this world is fading away, along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever. And I'm starting on that note because a lot of people believe that it's our responsibility to be part of the culture and part of the world system, whether knowingly or unknowingly. But I hope that after today, people have a clearer understanding of how uh, further back these cultural practices go and their original source. So some of the information would have been things that you could just Google, but at the same time, there were some other things that I put together to help clarify certain things. First and foremost, Carnival is a Catholic Christian festive season that occurs before the prescribed or liturgical season of Lent. Now, something I must explain also is that the Catholic Church is in its original form. The word Catholic meant universal, meaning in the early church there were no denominations, there were no nationalities, no Greek, no Jew, no male, no female, no bond, no free. So it meant anybody universally that believed in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, considered everybody with that belief to be brothers and sisters in the Lord. But a period came about where the church was Romanized, where it was sanctioned by somebody by the name of Constantine. And he added that whole issue of politics and Roman rulership methods. It was also around that period that certain pagan festivals were taken on and Christianized. So, as the saying goes, the pagan celebrations were Christianized, and Christian celebrations were paganized. So this is why it is referring to this festival as one of the regular things scheduled on the Catholic Church calendar. But its original roots were pagan in origin. So the word carnival is of Christian origin. The Latin derived name of the holiday is sometimes also spelled carnaval, that is Carneval. This word is said to come from the Latin expression carne levare, that is Carnelevare, which means to remove meat or farewell to meat. And in this case, it wasn't just physical meat that you eat, but everything came from the whole intention of enjoying yourself, as we say locally, playing yourself, right? Get everything you could get in terms of breaking the rules until Ash Wednesday. So it was that period of time where you could do what you wanted to do. That period, in most instances, would have lasted from February to early March. That was the period historically known as Shrove Tide. Carnival typically involves public celebrations, including events such as parades, public street parties, and other entertainments, combining some elements of a circus. Elaborate costumes and masks allowed people to set aside their everyday individuality and experience a heightened sense of social unity. Participants also indulge in excessive consumption of alcohol, because wine could ease suffering, bring joy, and inspire divine madness. From Italy, Carnival tradition spread to Spain, Portugal, and France, and from France to New France in North America. From Spain and Portugal, it spread with colonization to the Caribbean and Latin America. So these things that I mentioned before, the behavior and the actions, they were long before Carnival actually reached to the Caribbean and before it became part of the cultural settings of Trinidad and Tobago and the other Caribbean islands. Furthermore, some cultures use Carnival as a method of empowering themselves in spite of social conflicts. For example, when the Caribbean Carnival was established as a result of French settlers, even the slaves had their versions of the masquerade, where they would reverse roles to mock those of higher social status. So it's all about taking on that whole idea of pretense, that whole idea of masquerade. It was a day that you could play whatever character you want. So a poor man could play a rich man, and a rich man could play a poor man. And as you look at the developing of the culture and developing of the world system, the society that they came out of would have been even before Christ, 500-600 years BC, where the culture of Greece would have been prominent, the culture that set the pace for every other culture, because it was about the arts, it was about education, it was about theater, medicine, and even some of the practices that we are seeing here, even in our educational system, our arts and things like that, came out of the Greek culture. So they would have had an influence on world culture from since then to now. But it wasn't just about the good aspects like education and things like that. It was also about the negatives, right? The wild street parties, these things like that. Right? So, very good afternoon to Mr. Lena that has been on board. Again, everybody else that is listening. So it's not just a matter of coming out on a Carnival Monday or Tuesday and playing a pretty mass, etc., etc. Because there are some things I want to say for the next session about the local aspect of it. One of the things we need to understand is that every single Carnival, when we talk about Juve, we talk about there's a parade that starts even before Juve. I think it's done either the Friday before Carnival or something like that. It's called a Carnival Festival, or the word Carnival comes from burnt cane, and it's a serious religious ceremony that takes place, the introduction or the welcoming of the King of Carnival into the whole session. So people familiar with the word portal and doorways will realize that every single year that portal and that doorway is reopened to allow everything else that comes with it. The mockery, the having, all the other negative aspects of society that you see, the mud mass and the character mass and things like that. So every single year that portal is reopened, even if it's just for a season. And what you realize is that there are aspects of it that last way beyond the carnival. Right? The fights, there's always some controversy that must take place during that period. So moving along, one of the things they also connected Carnival to was the origin is from an ancient European festival such ancient European festivals such as Greek Dionysian or the Roman Saturnalia. During these festivals, there was a temporary release from social obligations and hierarchies to make way for the overthrow of order, joking, and even debauchery or sexual immorality, sin, drunkenness, everything mixed into one. From a historical and religious point of view, the Carnival therefore represented a period of celebration, but above all, of symbolic renewal, during which chaos replaced the established order, which, however, once the festival period was over, re-emerging new or renewed and guaranteed for a cycle valid until the beginning of the following carnival. What that means is that everything's turned upside down for that period of the carnival season, and Ashwins everything goes back to quote unquote normal. So there's always that renewing of that cycle. Carnival is a reversal ritual in which some social rules are reversed, as I said before, and norms about desired behavior are suspended. During ancient times, winter was thought of as the reign of the winter spirits. These spirits needed to be driven out in order for summer to return. Carnival can thus be regarded as a transition from darkness to light, from winter to summer. Our fertility celebration, the first spring festival of the year, and that whole aspect of fertility celebration is one that, again, I'm reading of events that are over 2,000 years old, and it's something like I'm reading about something that is happening whether last week or last month, or it's going to happen next week. So nothing has really changed. So it tells you about the connection, and it tells you about the nature of this thing that sometimes we take as just culture, just pretty mass and nice music, and people misbehaving for a little time, and after that, everything will go back to normal. Right? You're going to get your ashes on your head, and everything is forgiven, everything is forgotten until the next year. Some Germanic tribes or of Germanic origin celebrated the return of daylight. Winter would be driven out to make sure that fertility could return in spring, and that word again, fertility. A central figure of this ritual was possibly the fertility goddess Notus. Also, there are some indications that the effigy of Notus, or Freya, was placed on a ship with wheels and accompanied by a procession of people in animal disguises and men in women's clothes. Aboard the ship, a marriage would be consummated as a fertility ritual. Holy Week procession in Spain included crowds who would loudly shout insult at the figure of Jesus. So, getting down into some greater depths as to the source and the origin of this thing called carnival. Gradually, ecclesiastical authorities began to realize that the desired result could not be achieved by banning carnivals, which eventually led to a degree of Christianization of the tradition. It then became part of the liturgy or the yearly schedule of events on the quote-unquote Christian calendar. In the Middle Ages, Carnival and Lent were both necessarily unavoidable episodes in the eternal cycle of the church year. So in order to have Carnival, you must have Lent, and in order to have Lent, you must have Carnival. So Carnival is given into the flesh. So all the things that you were not supposed to, you did it. And then Lent now is that getting rid of the flesh or the fleshly desires until the next year. So it was both necessary to have that interplay, because carnivals are always set 40 days from Lent and by extension Easter. Now we might hold on to these celebrations and not realizing that again, because they would have been Christianized. Out of their pagan origins, they were all about fertility rituals and fertility ceremonies and things like that. And fertility wasn't just about the animals, because you have to remember in those countries where you have winter, animals and plants will now be springing back. Therefore, the spring season, right? And that will be time of mating and such things, because during the winter period, a lot of things you could not have done. Animals would have been hibernating, it would have been too cold to come out, the ground could not have produced crops and things like that. So the new leaves, the new animals coming out, the human elements also follow the animals in their mating rituals and things like that. So as you go along, you'll see some greater examples of such things. So again, they become part of the whole church calendar back in the day. So actually in Trinidad and Tobago, I think over the last 5 or 6 years, or maybe a little longer, again, not knocking the quote-unquote Catholic Church, but they have put out a ban, and that, when I say an actual mass ban, and they look forward to presenting this ban every single year as part of the whole the whole carnival celebration, because as far as they are concerned, it is normal and a natural part of the celebration of our art and creativity and all the gifts that God has given to us, ignoring the origin. Again, just repeating some things. Other common features of carnival include mock battles, such as food fights, expression of social satire, mockery of authorities, costume of the grotesque body that display exaggerated features such as large noses, bellies, mouths, male sex organs or elements of animal bodies, abusive language, and degrading acts, depiction of disease and gleeful death, and a general reversal of everyday rules and norms. The Italian tradition of men, the Italian tradition of wearing masks dates back to Venice Carnival in the 15th century and has been an inspiration in Greek theater for centuries. So the thing about it, in Greek theater, when you put on your mask, you could say what you want, do what you want, and not be recognized. So it was used as a way of getting at the authorities, insulting certain people without being. So the mask was supposed to be a barrier, right? But it's also an indication of a falsehood. And we're living in a time where a lot of people are living behind a mask, because some people are saying one thing and doing something else. Even in the church, we're having this problem of people looking like looking like the real thing, but their actions is something else, and they're hiding behind that mask. So what I'm doing is trying to connect everything about carnival with the realities of what we have to deal with in the world we are living in, and the church is not immune from it. The church is not separate from it, because again, as the passage that I read, Christ said, "I'm not going to take you out of the world, but I'm going to leave you in the world," because anytime we are taken out, the truth is all hell will literally break loose. We are the ones holding things together through the Holy Spirit. This is why we are still here. Jesus also said, "My kingdom is not of this world." I'll come back to some origins now, going back to the Greek culture. In ancient Greek religion and myth, Dionysus is the god of the grape harvest, winemaking, orchards, fruit, vegetation, fertility, festivity, insanity, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater. The Romans called him Bacchus. Now, every carnival season, you will hear the use of the word bacchanal. That came from Bacchus because the word Bacchus is the god. The celebration is called Bacchanalia, and bacchanal came from that. Those of you who are familiar with the local entertainment scene will know that there is a certain soca star that calls herself the Queen of Bacchanal, and her backing band is named Bacchanal. So there are three types of people in these scenarios. There are those who don't know, there are those who don't want to know, and then there are those who don't want you to know. So we got to really have this session is looking at bringing the truth to people so that they will not be shocked and surprised. They will not be drawn in because of ignorance, right? As I will cover later, next session, a lot of this information about culture and things like that are being made part of the school curriculum, primary school curriculum. So you are being trained and taught, and these ideas are being imposed on children because you must complete that as part of the curriculum to get your passes or your passing mark and things like that. So it's slowly, well, not really slowly, but there's a greater emphasis on bringing it into the school's curriculum, right? So maybe a lot of people look at it from the time of the of slavery, which was a few hundred years ago, but not fully aware of the whole history of a few thousand years ago and where it actually came from. Going back to Bacchus. All right, so Dionysus was his Greek name, but his Roman name was Bacchus. And he was called Bacchus because a frenzy he is said to include called Bacchia or Bacchanalia. As Dionysus or the Liberator he was called, his wine, music, ecstatic dance freed his followers from self-conscious fear and care and subvert or change or transform in a negative way, the oppressive restraints of the powerful. So it was also a form of mock rebellion. And those of you familiar with Trinidad Carnival and some of the other carnivals or Trinidad style carnivals around the world, you realize that what we call Old Mass and Juve, it's about mocking figures of authority and things like that. And what you have is, again, mock rebellion. And if pushed to certain limits, could change or transform people into rebellion and things like revolution and things like that. Because this is what the whole idea behind it is to create chaos, whether necessarily or unnecessary. And so we come back to the whole idea behind it. So it's like a case of a crazy frenzy, and as the music and the wine and everything else comes into being, you find that people lose control. So continuing, his stem scepter that was made from a plant called the fennel plant, sometimes born with ivy, that's a vine, and dripping with honey, is both a beneficent one and a weapon used to destroy those who oppose his cult. And the freedoms he represented, again repeating that, and the freedoms he represented. Those who partake of his mysteries are believed to become possessed and empowered by the god himself. Excessive drinking and debauchery generally accompany the cult of Dionysus, giving rise to the word Bacchanalia for a party featuring drunken revelry. Initially, Dionysus was often portrayed as a dignified elderly man with a beard, and later as a beautiful, nude youth was a small fat man. A barrel of wine, a bunch of grapes in his hand, or a wreath of vines crowned in his head are really missing in these depictions. Now, beside the appearance of an elderly man in the later version, where he was portrayed as a nude youth or naked youth, the appearance was more feminine than male. And the interesting thing about it is that he was portrayed as being asexual or not of any sex. And when you take that together with what is happening in the world today, you will realize that this whole issue of transgenderism and homosexuality, and you realize that everything is coming together as one under one banner. So as the Bible says in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. But it's just a matter of ignorance, because this is why these things are developing. Because of that whole issue of not knowing, that whole issue of being deceived, and that was it disguising or making something look less dangerous than it is, trying to present it from a place of innocence. But the intent was that seed was sown centuries ago. And then when you have these things coming into this place where it is in some instances being accepted. Yeah, blessed good afternoon to you, Miss Lavone. Glad to have you on board. Yeah, so when these things are being accepted and again being Christianized, and we might have this opinion that the Catholic Church is the Catholic Church, and the evangelicals or the full gospels are on the opposite end. But what we have to remember, in a lot of instances, what we have now came out of that old Catholic tradition. And some of you might be familiar with the whole issue of the Reformation or Protestantism, where that separation was made. But if you look at the churches, you'll realize that more and more they are coming back together on the one umbrella. A few years ago in Trinidad and Tobago, there was this call for Catholics to return. But the thing about it wasn't just about people who claim to be Roman Catholics or who were born into Roman Catholicism. It's a call made by even this present Pope that the original church, we all came out of the original church, meaning the universal church, the Catholic Church. But the thing about it, they are not telling you that they strayed thousands of years ago, actually in the 2nd century, 3rd century, after the birth of Christ. They strayed and they mixed everything together. So that when you come back, and they're not saying that again, the people who were born in the Catholic families, they are actually calling Protestants or evangelicals or born again or Pentecostals, they're calling them actually rebels, prodigal children. So it's all about the one world church and the one world economy, and everything is being set in place. Going back to Bacchanalia. Bacchanalia again was the festival of Bacchus, the Greco-Roman god of wine, freedom, intoxication, and ecstasy. They were based in the Greek Dionysia, right? You covered that. And like all mystery cults, again the word cult, the Bacchanalia were held in strict privacy, and initiates were bound to secrecy. What little is known of the cults and its rites derived from Greek and Roman literature, plays, and paintings. Right, so it was really secretive and presented as innocent again hiding behind paintings, hiding behind art, and sometimes you're seeing some things, some images, some pictures, and they call it artistic. People saying things, and they call it freedom of speech and liberty and things like that. But if you look at the gospel, I think it's Matthew, where Jesus was speaking to the scribes and Pharisees, and they were claiming to be the children, the seed of Abraham. And Christ turned to them and said, "You are of your father, the devil." So the fact that you are claiming one thing and you believe in one thing and you're assuming one thing, because again, on Ash Wednesday, everything is supposed to be washed away, right? You're now back to your innocent state. And that deception is what's going to cause the problems. You can do what you want, say what you want, be what you want, and still consider yourself to be Christian. And that's what makes it dangerous. And added to that is the whole issue of ignorance, not knowing. Because there are people who they don't go, but they make sure and they take in every show, right? They want to know what this one is singing this year, what that one come out with, and they are in tune with it, right? That's the interesting thing about it, because they have the latest blasting in their cars and then coming to lead worship in some churches on a Sunday morning. But they are in tune. They know who is who. They know what is what. I mean, locally, they also in tune with what is going on internationally. In the sense that they know what color, what is the latest color that Rihanna dyed her hair in, or what tattoo Beyonce got, right? Because then the next question is that what is the latest revelation from God, or where can you find so and so in the Bible? They might have difficulties answering that, but they are in tune with what's going on in the culture, not realizing that the culture will continue. I remember a few years ago, there was an individual saying that we need to fast to get rid of carnival. And I took him up on it, and then he asked me if I had no faith. But the thing about it is that carnival is part of the world system. The world system will have to be judged. That meaning the world system will never change or improve. It must continue its course, so that God will then be justified in judging it. One of the things we also have to remember, kind of dealing with not just local carnival, but carnival in general, it's an income generator. Right? So this year they're looking at investing $147 million, and they're willing to invest that because they know that they can get the returns. Because you're looking at tourism, you're looking at sales, you're looking at all the different services that will be benefiting in one way, but at the same time the government will be benefiting from. So when the government puts out that money, they know that they are guaranteed returns. Right? So we as believers cannot impact that in any way. What we have to do is impact individuals and the hearts and minds of people, so they themselves will make a choice to walk away. Because again, it's part of the world system, and a world system that is going to be judged someday. So it must run its course. So again, God will be justified in doing what is to be done. Come back to the whole celebration of Bacchanal or Bacchanalia, named after the god Bacchus or Dionysius. There's again, wine plays a big part. Wine and banquets and acquiring an enthusiastic following of women and men. But morally acceptable Bacchic cults or Bacchanalian cults of Rome, introducing the Etruscan version with 5 nocturnal worship meetings a month. So it was yearly, but it's now five meetings a month. Open to all social classes, ages, and sexes. Starting from, well, the person started from our own children. The new celebration and initiation were characterized by violence, fueled by wine and violent sexual promiscuity, in which the screams of the abused were choked by the dins of drums and cymbals. Those who rebelled or betrayed the secrets were eliminated. Under the cover of religion, the priests and acolytes broke every civil, moral, and religious law. So this again is the whole idea behind Carnival, and in its original form, Carnival and Bacchanalia after the word Bacchus, and these are some of the things that are still celebrated even now. The actual Carnival practitioners know the history, right? Because they are members who are sworn to secret codes within that fraternity. So it's not just a matter of gigging upon some colorful feathers and some clothes on from outside and celebrate. If you've noticed during the last few years, you read that most of the bands who play the bikini and beads, they are starting their presentation on the stage with some sort of ceremony or ritual or some sort of skit, because they are now getting into the whole history of it and realizing that it's not just a matter of enjoying yourself. There's a ritual behind it, and they're getting more and more into the rituals and the presentations and the presenting of their goddesses and their queens and their kings, and all kind of, as you might say, locally CBD involved in it. So these are the kind of things we need to be taking note of, and when again, do not be part of this world and this world system. Come back to Dionysius or Bacchus is represented by city religions as a protector of those who do not belong to conventional societies. He thus symbolizes that chaos, dangerous, and unexpected, everything which escapes human reasons, and which can only be attributed to the unforeseeable actions of the gods. So there's mockery, revelry, and rebellion. And we got to look at these things seriously, because, again, if you don't understand it, it will be represented in that state of innocence. And as I mentioned, revelry, I want to take a look at Galatians chapter 5. And we can see where these things are connected. Okay, Galatians chapter 5, verse 19. What is referred to as the works of the flesh. 19 to 21. When you follow the desires of your sinful nature, this is from the New Living Translation, the results are very clear: sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambitions, dissension, division, envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these. Let me tell you again, as I've before, that anyone living that sort of life will not inherit the kingdom of God. So this would have been Paul writing to the Galatians approximately 1900 years plus. And again, like I really say when I read these passages, that it is like if you're reading yesterday's paper or this morning newspaper, because it is so relevant, and everything that is presented is so real. Right, so acknowledging Sister Sharon. Again, I'm very glad to have you on board. And the support, not just the support for this program, but the fact that people can take it and run with it, do your own research, because again, these are the things that are happening around us. And most importantly, they are targeting school age children. So when they grow to a certain age, they will have already been, as you might say, brainwashed. Right? Almost every movie, every game, you're seeing images and practices, ceremonies of the occult that is supposed to be innocent children's programming and things like that. And if some of the adults are not aware of what is going on, they will have serious difficulties dealing with the younger ones. Right. So it was about the whole issue of rebellion and as I say, appealing to your baser instincts, as I just read, appealing to the works of the flesh within you. And then you realize that the stage is already set. So all this violence in schools, violence on the streets, it's about that stirring up. That's stirring up because every carnival, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, there must be uh, casualty, whether it be a fight or whatever, lives must be lost. I better say I want to leave something for the next session concerning local carnival, and I hope that not just universally but even locally we will get a different perspective of what is supposed to be this innocent celebration of creativity and art and etc. etc. So as we go along, come back to Dionysius or Bacchus. It says, in its fully developed form, his central cult imagery shows his triumphant, disorderly arrival or return, as if from some place beyond the borders of the known and the civilized. So every year, King Carnival is welcome, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but most of the other carnivals around the world. Now, again, I can't remember the exact number, but there's almost 100 different carnivals around the world at the same time. So some are called carnivals, some are called by different names. In America, you have in New Orleans, right? You have Brazilian carnival, you have carnival in places like India, Europe, Africa, different carnivals called by different names. Now we have the Trinidad style carnival that you find in Toronto, New York, Notting Hill, and things like that, influenced by the Trinidad carnival style. But again, those are not the only carnivals existing around the world. Most of the other carnivals are based on the information that I'm giving here. So they might not call it carnival, but the nature of it is the same. Just as deadly, just as dangerous, just as deceptive. And you'll get into it and not know. Because again, it's presented as culture. And if you get into the culture, people want to question your patriotism, whether you're true Trini or whether you're this or whether you're that. And the thing about it is that they are mixing, they are crossing the lines. They are stepping into gray areas and not realizing how dangerous it is because, again, as I just read in Galatians, people of such behavior, people who live according to the works of the flesh, cannot be part of the kingdom of God. And if you're not in the kingdom of God, then you're obviously in the kingdom of darkness, doomed for judgment and destruction. And that's the key element. But again, the whole issue of deception and cutting off on the road, but there are people talking Christ but living double lives that are causing people to stumble. going back to Dionysius or Bacchus, because again he was every time he came around, it was like a return. So he was welcome, and there's this big ritual again. Or I think Juve starts out something like 4 o'clock in the morning. But before that, there is opening ritual to welcome King Carnival back into the country, back into the city. And there are even prayers offered up by certain religious groups praying for the success of uh, devil worshipping and occultic practices. So while other gods had temples to be worshipped at, the followers of Dionysus worship in the woods. There they might go into a state of ecstasy and madness, ripping apart and eating raw any animal they might come upon. Dionysus was also referred to as a god of resurrection, and he was strongly linked to the bull. He is portrayed with bull horns, is slaughtered as a bull calf, and greedily eaten by the Titans. The Titans was a nation of people and gods, well, basically gods in Greek culture, right? So these things that we might look at as being innocent, and nothing to worry about. When you go into the deep meanings of it, there's a lot more than, as the saying goes, meet the eyes. But as we are on the whole issue of fertility rituals and festivals, in the middle of the month, February 14 to be exact, is the one you call Valentine's Day. And again, the Christianizing of the pagan traditions. It is spoken about 3 different uh, saints, Saint Valentine's, that did good work, etc., etc. But the festival was there before these 3 men called Valentine. And again, it was taken, the ceremonials was taken and Christianized, because what the idea behind it was, if you Christianize the ceremony, then you will bring the followers with them, or the followers of the ceremony, or the ritual. You now bring them, if you Christianize them and make it as part of the church culture or the church schedule, then you will have these people coming on board, because it was all about the numbers. And the interesting thing about it, nothing has changed. It's still about the numbers, right? So if I need to introduce slippers and short pants in my church to get you to come, I'm going to do it. If I need to introduce fog machines and flashing lights, I'm going to do it. But the thing about it is at what cost? So nothing has changed. It's a matter of bringing the world into the church to get the world. But then forgetting the fact that what you take to bring them is what you have to take to keep them. And at what cost? What does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose the soul? So coming back to Valentine's Day, it wasn't in relation to the 3 saints. It wasn't until more than 200 years later, that's 200 years after the pagan ritual started, that February 14 was proclaimed St. Valentine's Day. By this time, Rome had become Christian, and the Catholic Church was determined to stamp out any remaining paganism. The pagan fertility ritual was held in February each year, and the Pope abolished this festival and proclaimed 14 February St. Valentine's Day, thus establishing the feast day on the Catholic calendar of saints. So that ritual was Christianized and turned into a feast day and renamed Valentine's Day. So again, it's necessary to really check your history and have a better understanding of what's taking place and going on around you. Be aware, be alert. Because the Bible says that Satan is like a roaring lion going around seeking whom he may, and a key word, may devour. He's also like a roaring lion. He's not a roaring lion. He's like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And the greatest defense is a clearer understanding of the word and implementing and practicing the word. I just want to thank you for your goodness and your mercy and everything that was said here today. But I pray that minds and hearts will have been open, and that it will stir a sense of curiosity and a determination to find the truth and to present the truth for all those that are perishing and dying on a daily basis. So we thank you for strength, and we thank you for that level of stepping out by faith, forgetting those things that are behind, not just in terms of sin and things like that, but in terms of fear and doubts and unbelief, and stepping out and presenting the word in the midst of all the opposition and all the craziness, because people need to hear the truth. But we thank you in Jesus' name. So until the next appointed time, which will be the second week in February 11th, where we continue on this same team, but we're looking at the local perspective of Carnival after setting the basis on the fact that it's not just something that just pop out of the last few years. So thank you for listening. I'm Keith, and this is the end of the program, Interact for Impact.
Growth Radio. One King, One Kingdom. Sowing seeds to grow nations.
Growth Radio. Growth Radio. Growth Radio. Growth Radio.
I'm Keith, host of the program Interact for Impact. Bible-based teaching, study, and discussion aimed at equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. Join me every second and fourth Sunday, 1 p.m. on Growth Radio.